Hello everybody, hope you guys are doing well. So continuing on our journey in cryptography, today we will be talking about what is asymmetric cryptography, and then we will be talking about digital signing, and then a little bit about certificates and which company um, issues the certificate. Okay, so um, asymmetric cryptography, right? So in previously we saw symmetric cryptography, right? In symmetric cryptography, the key also has to be shared to the receiver for the receiver to decode the message, right? So let us understand how does asymmetric cryptography work, and then we'll try to see the advantages or of one over the other. Okay, so like when we do asymmetric cryptography, we have two things, right? Now, so suppose yeah, so there is one big problem, right, in symmetric cryptography. So both the sender and the receiver need to have the key with them, right? That means along with the message. So suppose this is my sender, and then this is my receiver, right? So both the sender and the receiver need to have the access to the shared key, right? So basically, we did not see how this shared key would be transmitted, right? So basically, so this section can call such. So we can solve such in asymmetric cryptography, right? So in asymmetric, as we see asymmetric, we have two types of keys. One is my public key, and one is my private key. Now, data encoded one can be decoded by the other. One of the keys is kept secret from the world, known as the private key. The other part of a directory available to the whole world is the public key. So, what is going to happen is, so there are two keys being used here, public and private. Both the public and the private key is capable of decoding the data, right, from what we have encoded. Now, suppose, okay, so what is going to happen is, um, okay, so Alice, so there are the sender wants to send email to the receiver, right? So what the sender will do? The sender will generate a pair of keys. So here the sender is going to have two types of keys being generated. So first, what it is going to do is it is going to generate two types of keys. One is basically the private key, and then other is the public key. So what it is going to do is he is going to share this public key to the world and to the receiver as well, right? So the receiver is going to use this public key. Um, so what the receiver is going to do? Uh, okay, so yeah, let's. I guess we got something wrong. So at the receiver end, what we are going to do is we are going to generate two keys. This is my one is public and one is private. Now what we are going to do is we are going to make this private key, this public key, uh, to be sent to the sender, right? Now the sender is going to generate the message and encode it using the public key. Generate and encode the message using the public key. Now the encrypted message can be so then now once it has been encrypted, So now this is going to go to the receiver, right? The receiver can only decrypt it with using the public key. So this is how the decryption is going to happen, right? The encrypted message can only be decrypted by the receiver's public key. So Bob is going to use his or the receiver is going to use his private key to decrypt and read the messages, right? So this is how asymmetric. So asymmetric is basically, so asymmetric is, remember here, both the sender and the receiver do not have access to the public and private. The sender only gets the public key, which is being shared by the receiver, whereas the private key, the receiver keeps the private key with himself. This is something called as asymmetricity, right? Um, this private key is going to keep the message is kept by the receivers as secret. Now the sender is going to generate and encode the message using the public key. So if the receiver, and it will be decoded using the private key, but the receiver has access to both the public and private, right? Um, why is he using the private key and not the public key? I mean, what's the disadvantage of doing? Let's say, what is going to happen here? No. So the question that we are trying to is, why shouldn't we use the thing that we are trying to figure out is, why shouldn't we use the public key to decrypt? Like, why are we not using that thing? So like, we are using the private key, right? Not the public key. Um, so what is going to happen is, mm, but let's see what is happening here. There is something that we are missing. So in case of email transfer, mm, But then we said that both the and this is some not this is not making sense. Okay, so okay, the data encoded with one can be decoded by the other. One of the key is kept away from the world, known as the private key. The other is a part of the key available to the whole world as the public key. So, for example, let's assume Alice and Bob have such keys assigned to them. So there is one key which is a public key, which is given by and then one is a private key, right? So KAV is the private key and KAP is the public key. Now what is going to happen is okay, so the Alice is going to send a public key, and then okay, so what is there is something okay. Let's see. We'll see that thing. What is happening here? So first is Bob obtains the private key. Okay, so Alice is going to have her two keys, right? One is public and private, and that is going to be sent to Bob, right? And then the Bob is going to generate a symmetric key of sufficient B that can be used for encrypting messages. He encrypts the messages with public key of Alice. Alice uses her private key to decrypt the message. Since Alice has access to the private key, only Alice has no. So there is a relation between private and public key which is happening here. Okay. The private key is for description. Okay. Okay. So for example, Alice and Bob want to talk to each other. So this is Alice, and then I have Bob here, right? So if it would have been symmetric key, then Alice will be sharing her, encoding her the message with the public key, and then sending it to the with the secure key and sending the secure key as well to Bob, right? So both of them have access to the key. That is what is making symmetricity. This is my Bob. So now Bob generates a pair. So here the receiver is he's generating two keys. I have two keys being generated here. One is my public and one is my so let's rotate. Yeah, this is my one is my public and one is my so I have two keys being generated, private and public. Now what Bob is going to do is Bob is going to send his public key. So the public key has gone to Alice. So let's have a public and then let's have private as well. So now Bob is sending his public key that is available to the world to Alice. Okay, so public key, and then now what Alice is going to do is Alice is going to encrypt message. So the encryption is going to happen here. So encryption will be Alice plus the public key which she got from Bob. Now, okay, Alice uses Bob's to encrypt the message. Now the encrypted message. Okay, but in this, Bob already has public key, right? I mean, this is something. Yeah, because okay, so let's try to understand why Bob cannot use the already. So he already has the public key available to him, right? So if he has the public key, so decrypting will be easy, right? Mm, okay, so this what is saying is this message can be decrypted only with the help of private key. So the message can be decrypted only by the private key, right? Of Bob. If this public key is available to all, right? So if the message is okay, so this is available on the network. I see. So if some third person has access to public key as well, then even he can read the message, right? But then instead of the public key decoding the message, the private key is going to decrypt the message. So that is what is making the transaction, and that is this asymmetricity, right? You only have the only Bob has both the keys. The Alice does not have both the keys, right? Alice only has one key, that is to encrypt. That is given by Bob. This is something called as encryption, right? But then the thing is, Bob already has access to this public key, so uh, so he already has that key with him, right? So why am I not having that feature? Okay, let's see how encryption works. So encryption is basically message plus a key, right? Then if you want to decrypt it, we need the key. Will be message plus the key, right? So if I have this, then I can the get back my original message that I sent. But then this is not what is happening. The message plus, so in traditional as encryption, what would happen is encrypt will be message plus key, and then there's a base. For example, generally my encrypted message will be my message and the key. So if I have access, so then I would do the encrypted message and the key and the reverse operation, then I will get my decryption. So for example, hello, if I, this is like a very basic simple encryption mechanism, right? So what I'm doing is in my symmetric I'm sharing the key as well. Now in asymmetric, so why does the receiver use the private and not the public key? Yeah, public key is basically for encrypting and can be used by anyone to encrypt a message, right? The encryption process ensures that only the receiver who holds the matching private. Oh, so is the public key generated by the sender, or how does that happen? Yeah, so the receiver generates both the keys. The public key is meant to be shared openly. The private key is kept to decrypt the messages, right? uh, so what is happening is this encryption is going to happen like a one-way transformation. So once a message is encrypted by the public key, it cannot be decrypted back to the original message without the private key. Oh, I see what's happening here. So instead of using one single key, what I'm doing, so the encrypted message can be decrypted only with the help of the private key, which is available by Bob. So the algorithm is going to work in such a way that it is going to produce a encrypted message, and this encrypted message can be only decrypted by the private key. So then the receiver has to use this private key, I guess. Is this so? What are the drawbacks of symmetric cryptography, right? I mean, there is some issue with symmetric that we need to understand. So let's see. Let's see that. Okay. Issues with symmetric crypto. So one obvious is how to. I see. Okay, so yeah, let's see the drawback. Okay, so first let's see what are the disadvantages of having or using um, a symmetric communication, right? Okay, so this is going to go over here. Now, what is going to happen is, so these are two people, right? So let's see, these are two famous people, Alice and Bob. Okay. So these two people are trying to communicate with each other, right? So since R is a secured version, we are going to first have some mechanism in order to authenticate, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send also Alice is going to send the key along with the message to Bob. Now what if there is a person or what if someone is eavesdropping here? So if someone is eavesdropping, then he can see the key, right? So even he has the access to the key. So let's see. If someone is sitting in between, then even he can access the key, right? So if he has the key, then again he can decode the message in between, right? Oh, so this is the issue, right? Sending the key along with the message is a through an unsecure channel. This is an unsecure channel, right? Anyone can eavesdrop here, and that too very easily. So we need to overcome this drawback so that even if a person is eavesdropping, or if this is not the entire, or if this someone is sitting in between here, or if there is a man in the middle attack, even he should be able not be able to see that key. So symmetric cryptography does not solve or does not solve the issue of man in the middle or eavesdropping, right? There is someone in between, he can anytime access, because the thing is this medium is still not secured, right? So this is more vulnerable to man in the middle attack. Like somebody can just eavesdrop, and if he has the access to the keys, because the key is also going to be sent on this unsecured channel. So the drawback of symmetric cryptography is key being sent on the unsecured channel. Okay, let's key being sent on the unsecured. So we don't want this to happen, right? There should be some sort of security mechanism that should be able to hide this key. So what we do is, instead of using one key, now we make use of two keys. So what we do is, okay. So if Alice and Bob are going to communicate with each other, so suppose this is Alice and this is Bob. So let's be Alice, and then this is. So if both of them are going to communicate or talk to each other, what is going to happen is, now Bob is going to generate two types of key. So what he's going to do, he's going to have two key being generated. So first is basically my public, and then second is basically my second is basically my private key, right? So now what my private key is going to do is basically, I'm going to send this public key to the to Alice. Alice is going to decrypt and generate a message in such a way. So Alice is going to perform decryption, sorry, encryption, right? So it will be message and plus some sort of, and plus the public key, right, which is being sent by Bob. Now this public key is available to all. Now the algorithm used to decrypt will be such that only the private key at the receiver can decode this logic. So what we are doing now is, even if there is a person who is sitting in between, until and unless he is not generating the private key, or he is not having any issue, or if he does not have any contact with Bob, he won't be able to generate this private key, right? So first drawback that we are eliminating is basically man in the middle. Or if there is even if somebody eavesdropping here, or even if some person is listening to this unsecured channel, Bob can directly access the keys, right? I mean, the person does not have access to the private keys, so the message still cannot be decoded. So asymmetric cryptography basically solves the problem of eavesdropping and um, man in the middle attack, right? That is still a prevalent issue in symmetric cryptography. Okay. Now then is something called as digital signing, right? The similar mechanism is going to have in digital signing, right? Like what if we want to do some sort of, now here we are going to perform digital signing. So let's see how is the similar sort of mechanism is used in digital signatures. So in digital signature, what we do is so in digital signatures, what we basically want to do is the sender has to sign the document, right? The sender has to sign. Sender has to sign the document. So what he does is he kind of produces a hash function. Now the document is with the sender, right? So he will be using to generate or to perform encryption. He would not be using public key. He would be using a key that is private to himself, right? And generate a hash function in such a way that if the message is corrupted, the hash value will change. So he's going to generate a message that is so he will be generating a message plus he will be using his private key to generate the encrypted or whatever message, right? Now this is going to be generated over here. So at the receiver end, what I'm going to do is at the receiver end I need to decrypt it, right? So because I just need the document. So what is going to happen here is this is basically to sign PDF, right? So the receiver will use the public key which is available to get or to decrypt the message back. And so sender uses the private key to encrypt the hash. That is what constitutes of the digital signature. The private key is only kept known to the sender. By signing the hash of the message, the sender is effectively signing the message itself. Now send the message with the signature. The sender sends both the original message and the digital signature. Because the message has been hashed, right? So okay, now he's going to send his public key to the receiver. So the public key is going to come here. Now when he sends his public key to the receiver, first thing we are mentioning that this is the intended user, right? So that issue is resolved, and only the public key can decrypt this hash value. Now he is not going to send so he is going to send something and called as an hash, and they are basically going to check if the two hash values generated are going to match or not. If the message has not been tampered, so he is going to and then the sender is going to send the document and along with the public key as well. So this is my document going in. So okay, this is my document which is coming here, and this is my public key, right? So what is he is going to do at the receiver end? He is going to use the public key plus the message to generate another hash, and then they are going to compare if these hashes are matching or not. So he is not sending the private key, but the document is sent, right? Okay, if there is any changes or any person tamper, then this is still susceptible to man in the middle, right? Because so the message and the hash is going to the receiver. The recipient has both the original message and the digital signature. The recipient takes the original, so he will apply and produce an hash function to decrypt, because there is the public key by using the public key which has been sent. The decrypted hash matches the newly calculated of the match of the message. The recipient knows that the message is not tampered with first. The message was signed by the holder of the private key because only sender's public key could decrypt. But then, so we need not cause man in the middle. So digital signatures are also susceptible then. If you think that way. So even this is bad, right? So asymmetric key is not that prone to MIT. But even that the public key has been sent, right? But then it uses the private key to decode. Or eavesdropping. So let's see. So eavesdropping is solved, right, in symmetry. Yeah, so asymmetric basically solves this eavesdropping issue. No one can get a hand of that public key because the private key is being used, right, to sign. But then eavesdropping can happen. Okay. So what does digital signature achieve then? If these are still prone, then just symmetric. versus digital signature versus asymmetric. So this is just to verify or sign the document. We're not performing any sort of encryption here. So digital signature basically makes sure that um, that who is the intended user, like is the original user who wants to communicate, is he sending the communication or not. So what is the use of also basically this is like signing a document thing. This is just making sure that the message has not been tampered. I see. So there is no encryption or decryption happening here. Basically it's like a document verification, that was the document changed after it was being sent or signed. So digital signature is only for document verification, nothing else. Like one of the primary use is document verification, right? And email, so you sign it digitally. It has nothing to do with cryptography, I guess. Okay, but then what if, like, if someone gets access to the public key? No, because the public key is also sent, right, to the person or the intended authority. What if someone gets access of that public key? Then the message is okay. So basically, we are maintaining the what do you say? The only role of digital certificate is just to maintain the authenticity of the message, and whether there was any or to recognize who had sent the message. However, it is still proven, right? The key exchange using asymmetric cryptography, we use public key to encode the data. What will happen if we use the private key? So that is, so here we are in asymmetric cryptography. We use private key, right? Then digital signature is basically something that we are using the, no, yeah, we use the public key, right? Now we are going to use the private key. That is how digital signing works. So digital signing goal is basically to identify the authenticity of the signature and whether the document has been changed after it has been signed. Meaning the, but then what are the so drawbacks of asymmetric cryptography is, or problems in asymmetric cryptography? Let's see. One thing is if the private key exposed by the receiver, then that is an issue, right? Yeah, this is still prone because here we are nowhere identifying that this is my intended user, right? I mean, there is no way to check because if you see an asymmetric thing, oh, this is my asymmetric, right? This is my symmetric. This is still like when we are not able to identify whether was this my intended user or not, because the public key is going to be sent by the receiver, right? Now the receiver, suppose if a person is sitting here and he intercepts this public key, he can send his message, right? And then the private key will decode it. So it is still susceptible to that man in the middle attack. Now so modern what we use is we use SSL and TSL handshake. So let's say SSL and TSL handshake. We use something called as digital certificates, right? Let's see what's that. Yeah, so what we do is basically instead of just using asymmetric cryptography, we add something called as a digital certificate, right? For example, okay, so now how it is going to work is basically, okay, let's see. So for suppose this is Alice and Bob, right? So they are going to talk to each other. Let's assume this is a website and data is being shared on a website. First, what I will do is there is something called as a certificate. So I'm going to have a certificate being issued from a certificate authority. So let's see, this is my CA that is issuing the certificate. Now, also what is okay, yeah. So this is Alice, right? And then so the main issue is that public key being transmitted over the unsecured net, right? Because in asymmetric cryptography that is an issue, right? So what I will do is, so the certificate authority will issue a certificate saying that this is the intended user who intended the or who wants to, who will have the certificate with him, and along with this certificate we will be sending the private key, the public key as well. Two things are being sent along with the certificate. Okay, now I got it. So this is my okay, is it the same size? It's somewhat the same. So this certificate plus key is going to come. So I have my key as well. Now this is nothing but the public key of Bob, right? So remember we are using asymmetric cryptography, right? So this has two keys. One is public and then one is private. So this is my public key and then this is my private. So this public key is given by the certifying authority, or this has the access to this public key. So what I'm going to do is the public key is basically going to be issued by the certifying authority, and now okay, and now this what do you say? So now so this Alice has the public key plus the message that will be equal to my encrypted message, and then here at the receiver Bob is going to decrypt it by using his private key, right? So first of all what you have meant, and oh, the certificate, he'll also check the certificate, right? So when the certificate comes in we are going to check, is was this the intended user? So then the MIT or man in the middle attack is reduced, right? Because now I know that I'm requesting from Alice only. So we use along with our cytometric, okay. We use digital certificate in hand. So both these technologies working are together, I guess. So we use both of them so that first of all what we make sure is first is the original intended user is getting the data, is we are making sure that the certificate is guaranteed to Alice only, and he is the intended user who is going to request for the website access, or is the person who needs the certificate. So then the certificate will have the key as well. There is a certificate issuing authority that issues the certificate. Now what? Okay, so now what this is going to do? So how is this authentic? Because anyone can request the access, right? Anyone can get the certificate from CA. So what Alice is going to do is, Alice is going to sign a digital signature is going to be done over here. Oh, so these everything is going to work in hand. So the aim goal of digital signature was basically to make sure that I am the intended user, right? If there's any changes here to the certificate, then the hash will change over here. the hash has been changed. So Bob will come to know once the hash changes, then this is not the person who I intended or who I wanted the certificate to be from. Okay, so yeah, we use asymmetric cryptography where you have two keys. Plus, you use something called a certificate and digital signatures. These two make sure that I am the intended user, and this is basically for making sure that I'm the intended and receiver, I guess. Okay, so certificate plus signature. Asymmetric. Yeah, so that is what is happening. Oh, so if you use alone asymmetric, then again there's an issue. Asymmetric cryptography is not good, right? It's already because the public key is already it's a very basic form of cryptography that we don't use. Oh, so asymmetric cryptography is totally different, and digital signature working is two things. Like asymmetric cryptography uses the digital signatures to sign the certificate, and then it is sent to Bob. Oh, yeah. So basically, symmetric cryptography is very bad, right? There is no way to have any sort of protection because public key is already exposed, and it's a very minimalistic uh, kind of a very minimalistic way of establishing a secure connection. Because if there is any person who is sitting in between, he can access the key at any time, right? So that is very bad. So then we came to something called as asymmetric, right? But even if you use asymmetric cryptography alone, man in the middle attack is still avoided, can't be overcome, right? So then what we did is instead of having instead of using only asymmetric, then we learned about something called digital signatures, right? That basically so asymmetric cryptography solves one problem, that who is the intended receiver, but then the problem is still arises, am I the intended sender? So that is solved by digital signature. So digital signature will basically enable us to identify the sender's identity. So now when we use both of them in hand and along with the certification process, uh, that is when we are going to rectify or fully make the uh, um, the certificate, like the intended and the receiver secure, right? uh, yep. So yeah, that's all for like basic cryptography. Like still we need to, we'll see, even though we have verified client side certificate plus digital signature, still there are some other methods as well. Still there are some methods, or still there is some scope of um still there is some issue, right? So still we have some other authentication mechanism. So we'll see still further. Why do we still require more level of security? I mean, why do we need that? Like, uh, what is the issue? So yeah. That's all for this lecture. I'll see you guys with another session of authentication, and then go on from there. Bye bye. Take care.